We all know that rugby started when William Webb Ellis decided to pick up a football and run with it, right? That is what happened, right? This is 5 common rugby myths that you believe. When I was but a wee lad, I remember being told this story of how rugby was started. It was even the opening video for the 2015 Rugby World Cup. But there's about as much evidence to support this as there is for the SRU being competent. There are so many conflicting reports about how rugby was started, but the only thing that is for sure is that William Webb Ellis did not spontaneously invent the sport when he decided to pick up the ball and run with it. In fact, at this time, it was common in most codes of football to handle the ball. The facts are that the rules of rugby football were created by the students and were discussed almost every time they went out to play. This was until 1846 when W.D. Arnold, W.W. Shirley and F. Hutchins first wrote the rules of rugby football. No single person created rugby football, and these 3 boys had far more to do with what the sport has become today than William Webb Ellis ever did. To add to this point is the age of rugby. When I was at school, my PE teacher asked my class which sport was older, rugby or football, and he said that football was. He was telling this in the context of association football, as many people do, but this has created confusion about what the term football actually means. The term football simply means that it's a ball sport played standing on your feet, and has nothing to do with what part of your body you use to play the ball with. That's why there's so many sports called football that rarely involve kicking the ball, such as rugby itself or gridiron football. The first rules of association football were written in 1863, 17 years after rugby's. So by this mantra, rugby is the older sport. To say rugby was formed from football is correct, as football is a term that has been used for centuries. But the colloquial understanding of the story is entirely wrong, and rugby is most certainly not a younger sport than association football. When I was at the pub watching the Six Nations, I heard an older rugby fan talk about how the sport was better in their day when scrums were shorter and people only kicked as a last option. But what if I told you kicking has decreased over the last 30 years? In the 1995 Rugby World Cup, the average game had 60 kicks, whereas in the 2019 World Cup, it was only about 45 kicks, a 22% drop. Over the same period, ball in play time has gone up, meaning that kicks per minute of ball in play has dropped by a whopping 38%, showing us the amount of kicking and the frequency of kicking has dropped significantly over the past 30 years. Now the next myth is that you haven't clicked the like button. Surely that can't be true. If it is, you should probably amend that. Due to rugby league not being especially popular outside of the north of England and Australia, you may be forgiven for thinking that it has little impact on rugby union. Well, at the start of the league's formation in 1895, it had a huge impact on English rugby. England started losing more test matches without the uncompromising Lancashire and Yorkshire forwards. This led to an 18-year dry spell between home nation championship wins, a competition which is now known as the Six Nations, and a humiliating 26-3 defeat to Wales, a team that England would normally beat. Look, I like to laugh at England as much as the next person, but they weren't the first host nation to be knocked out at the pool stages of a World Cup. In 1991, the World Cup was hosted by England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland and France. Jesus, that's a mouthful. In this tournament, Wales had a shock defeat to Western Samoa, which saw them finish 3rd in Pool 3 and not qualify for the quarterfinals. So Wales were actually the first host nation to be knocked out at a Rugby World Cup pool stage. It's just one more thing to laugh at the Welsh about, I guess. Now, if you enjoyed that, I think you'll also enjoy this video right here. Thanks for watching.